Trump finally did the thing he promised. He opened up the JFK files. Okay, most of them. A massive batch of CIA and FBI material hit the public, genuinely valuable stuff, while a seriously important chunk is still locked away. But even with what's already out, there are details that spin the case in the opposite direction. After a lightning-fast refresher, we'll get into those details in the next couple of minutes. John F. Kennedy, America's 35th president, took office on January 20th, 1961, and he didn't play politics the way U.S. leaders typically played it back then. He wanted to dial back Cuba operations, he navigated the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he was moving toward easing tensions with the Soviet Union. On top of that, he planned a deep overhaul of the CIA. Then came Dallas, November 22, 1963, and 60 years later, people still don't shut up about the questions. What's up? This is Future Digest. Like, subscribe, and let's roll. Here's the official story in 3 bullets. 1. Kennedy was killed by ex-Marine Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone. 2. Kennedy's brother Robert later gets killed too, again allegedly by a lone, unstable guy. 3. The Kennedys had so many enemies that the simple loner explanation feels way too neat. Which is exactly why roughly 70% of Americans still don't buy it, and why this new document dump detonated online. The first big concrete takeaway is brutal for the classic Cold War blame game. There's no Cuban trail and no Soviet trail. The declassified reports show the CIA was basically crawling on its knees, hunting for a USSR or Cuba signature. Outcome? Nothing. And yes, they really wanted to find something. Meanwhile, inside the Soviet Union, CIA sources describe panic and confusion. The Communist Party reportedly feared Kennedy's death might be a coup that spirals into World War III. And Castro? Ironically, he didn't treat Kennedy like the devil. He saw him as one of the only US politicians you could actually talk to. Which brings us to the second, spicier point. One newly released CIA file claims Castro tried to rerun the assassination. He tasked 3 separate elite teams to replicate what Oswald supposedly pulled off solo. Result? All 3 teams failed. Old rifle tech, a nasty firing angle, a moving target, nobody in those units could reproduce the shooting the way Oswald allegedly did. And remember, Oswald wasn't some legendary sniper. He was a mediocre Marine who scraped by on the lowest qualifying level. Third point, same flavor. During Oswald's time in the USSR, the KGB reportedly considered recruiting him and then passed, calling him essentially useless. They singled out his poor weapon handling and his psychological instability. And historians love to add one more layer here. After his arrest, Oswald called himself a patsy and refused to confess. But that's just the appetizer, because the fourth heavy-hitting point is this. 3 senior CIA figures ended up lying under oath to the official JFK investigation. Back when the official inquiry was running, 3 major CIA figures, counterintelligence boss James Angleton, CIA Director Richard Helms, and station officer George Joannides, told the Warren Commission the same clean story. The agency didn't know Oswald, didn't track Oswald, had 0 context on Oswald. And then the declassified material landed like a brick, because it shows that a week before Dallas, an approximately 180-page Oswald dossier was already on Angleton's desk. Helms, meanwhile, wasn't just aware of Oswald, he was aware the CIA kept him on a surveillance list and, in a move that openly clashes with the Constitution, intercepted his correspondence. And Joannides? He ran the CIA's Miami station, where, plot twist that isn't a plot twist at all, Oswald allegedly showed up looking for employment. And here's the part that still stinks. Details about what that Miami station was doing remain classified to this day. Historians keep trying to rip those pages out of the vaults, because at minimum, what we're staring at is a documented attempt to funnel the investigation down the wrong hallway. And let's be honest, once you learn that near-top officials were lying under oath to the official commission, the commission's conclusions don't just raise questions, they start wobbling, especially since plenty of people argue those same officials shouldn't have been treated as neutral witnesses in the first place. Then another bombshell file gets opened, a huge multi-hundred-page package on the Bay of Pigs. The plan was simple on paper. US-trained Cuban forces land, overthrow Fidel Castro by force, and the United States pretends it wasn't involved. In reality, it became a spectacular failure and a public humiliation. And the documents suggest Kennedy wasn't just misinformed, he was played hard. because the operation began under Eisenhower, and Kennedy tried to resist it as much as he could. He didn't want to be pulled into a Cuba war. The internal fighting was messy, but the short version is brutal. The CIA sold Kennedy a clean, covert operation, one that would never lead back to Washington, while their own reporting showed that inside the agency, they didn't believe the landing had a real chance. They expected failure, and that failure wasn't just a risk, it was the leverage. The logic was, let it crash loudly, let it become so catastrophic that Kennedy has only one responsible option left: send in US troops openly. But Kennedy refused to take the bait. He didn't invade. Instead, he ordered his advisor Arthur Schlesinger to draft a plan for a sweeping CIA overhaul so the agency couldn't operate like a government inside the government. And not long before that reform plan could be carried out, Kennedy was killed. You don't need to be a conspiracy addict to understand why that timing makes people's blood run cold. And the newly released details don't stop there. One declassified point, a known hired killer, Herminio Diaz, was in the vicinity on the day of the assassination, and an FBI report says he either was working with the CIA at the time or had worked with them shortly beforehand. Diaz wasn't some random thug. He was a Cuban revolutionary figure with mafia ties and a track record of dozens of political killings. Yet he still ended up receiving U.S. citizenship through CIA channels. Later, in 1966, he joins a failed attempt on Castro, gets eliminated, and the leader of the team, also a CIA-connected man, Tony Cuesta, ends up blinded and thrown into a Cuban prison. In prison, Cuesta meets a medic named Reynaldo Gomez and tells him something absolutely insane. Diaz, when joining Castro elimination groups, reportedly listed the killing of JFK like it was a line on his CV, and more than once walked through the details. And then there's the next name that makes the whole thing feel cursed: Jack Ruby, the man who will shoot Oswald during transport, explaining it with this almost movie-romantic justification. Ruby said he didn't want Jacqueline Kennedy to endure the psychological horror of a courtroom trial, so he decided to punish the killer himself. That "I did it out of love" movie logic doesn't happen in real life, and the newly declassified stuff pushes the Ruby angle into even darker territory, because Jack Ruby wasn't just some emotional nightclub owner. One, he had mafia connections. Two, he had a line into the FBI, an assigned contact named Bob Vanderslice. And Vanderslice later claimed that on the morning of the assassination, Ruby messaged him like, "Hey, wanna go watch fireworks today?" And that's the insane part. By the time the motorcade rolled, Vanderslice and Ruby were posted across from the Texas School Book Depository, watching the assassination unfold from what you could call VIP seats. But it wasn't only agents casually hanging out with mob guys that day. There's another character who makes the whole story feel cursed. Gary Underhill, ex-Army captain, intelligence connected, allegedly bolted out of Washington the very next day. He crashed at a friend's place and told him bluntly, Kennedy's murder was planned by a clique inside the CIA, and now he was afraid he'd be next. Now take one guess what happened? Underhill turns up dead back in Washington. Official ruling? Suicide. Sure. And here's the most frustrating pattern of all. Almost every thread that looks explosive in this release still hits a locked door. The CIA still hasn't fully disclosed what George Joannides was actually doing, the Miami station figure tied to the same place Oswald supposedly walked into trying to get himself hired. The Herminio Diaz file is still sealed too, so we still don't know what his real relationship with the CIA was supposed to be. Ruby is its own absurd subplot. While sitting in prison for shooting Oswald, Ruby tried to reach the official investigators and offer information, and the officials basically treated him like background noise. They only interviewed him after public pressure, and even then it was one brief, shallow conversation once, and that's it. So if you zoom out, the new document dump leaves us with a few big conclusions. One, Kennedy clearly wasn't friends with the US intelligence world. He was in open conflict with it. Two, the sheer volume of covert operations is wild, and a lot of them read like they were written by people who think laws are optional. We're talking about stuff like the CIA allegedly mixing cement into children's milk in Cuba, poisoning cows in Germany, and hiring former Nazis to run anti-Soviet work inside the USSR. Kennedy hated this kind of thing, and the CIA's ability to operate like a semi-independent empire was suddenly under threat, which makes the timing of everything feel uncomfortable. And the Oswald alone story also starts looking shaky. On one side, you've got the practical problem, the shooting itself. The rifle was old, the conditions were difficult, and Oswald's skill level doesn't exactly scream miracle sniper. On the other side, you've got motive, and motive is where the official story starts leaking. Even Alan Dulles, former CIA director, pointed that out in a memo to David Belin, who led parts of the official inquiry. Dulles basically said the official narrative has serious holes. If Oswald wanted to kill Kennedy as a statement, why did he run? If he planned a getaway, why did he have only $20 on him? Especially an hour earlier, he dropped around $150 on random household purchases. And then the third crack, if Oswald truly hated Kennedy, why did he deny it after arrest and call himself a patsy? So yes, even top intelligence figures were quietly acknowledging the official conclusions were full of weak points. Yet the conclusions stayed, the case got frozen in place, and people kept asking the same questions for decades. And now, with this new wave of files, members of Congress are already demanding an official reopening, especially because some witnesses and peripheral participants are reportedly still alive. So what's your take? Do you buy the official version, or do you think the truth is messier? Drop your opinion in the comments. New episode coming soon. Goodbye.